Welcome back to today's show. I am with Danielle Unsworth. Hey, Danielle, thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited for our episode today.
This is going to be a blast. Danielle, you are in the warm country of Canada right now. It's February, so I know you guys are having a blast.
Yes, always so much sunshine here and lots of freezing rain and ice storms.
Hey, but like we were talking offline, spring is around the corner. So if
That's
we
right.
could just hold on a little bit longer. We've been blessed in South Carolina this year. We've had a rainy winter, but it hasn't been like ridiculously cool, which has been nice. Like we've been outside and I'll think like in my brain, it's like, hey, it's February. It's gonna be cold. So I'm like bundling up and I walk outside, it's like 60 degrees and I'm sweating. I'm like, okay, could be worse. So you've done all your investing in Canada, huge in the multifamily space. So I want to dig into that, the current state of the market, what you're doing for women investors in Canada. I mean, you're absolutely crushing it. So I can't wait to unpack all that. But how did your journey into real estate start? Where'd you find the pot at the end of the rainbow?
So I started when I first bought my property, and I had no idea what I was doing. I was about 24 years old, full time waitress, full time grad student, and I just didn't want to pay rent. So I figured it out. I used my waitressing like tip money. I borrowed some money from friends and family, and I made it happen. And at that time, it was really difficult for a waitress and a full time, like as a full time student, getting that mortgage. But I figured it out, and I got my first property. And then later on, I discovered the magical strategy of refinancing. And so I was able to refinance that property, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. And I focused primarily on single family homes at that time. And this was around 2008, 2009. And it was just because that's what I knew. So, semis, single family homes, townhouses. And during COVID, my husband got laid off. He's an aircraft mechanic, so there were no more planes that needed repairs. Nobody was traveling, so he got laid off, and that's when I really like buckled down. I got myself a real estate coach, started taking courses, and really just took my small portfolio of 3, 4 single family homes and started scaling into the multifamily space by learning to do joint ventures, raising capital, and doing the Burr strategy and all that good stuff. So I really like 10x my portfolio during that COVID period. And yeah, so that's pretty much my journey. And now I'm teaching women to get started in real estate just because I saw how powerful it can be as a strategy, especially for single moms. I feel like it's really important to have that financial security. And that's why I'm sharing my journey all the time, and I am always available for questions and anything really that's related to real estate because I'm obsessed now.
Oh, once you get bit by the bug, it's you can't get let go of it. It's crazy. I tell folks I remember the first deal I did afterwards, it was like, where's the next deal? It's almost, I don't like to use the word because it's taboo, but addiction. It's like you
Mhm,
almost have an addiction to the next deal. Like I'm
mhm.
such a deal junkie. And it's so much fun. And I think it's because it's changed our lives.
Yes.
I think when you attach yourself to something that then impacts you so profoundly, and I've had multiple things. I've had people in my life who do that, who've done that. I've had corporations, and my people won't talk about working for companies are terrible. I've had corporations that have helped change my life. And then this asset real estate, all from a financial perspective. And man, when it does that, you're like, give me more. Like,
Oh,
where's the next dotted line to sign on? So
yes.
really cool that you've got into multifamily. I can't wait to talk about that, what your strategy is. Obviously, you've bird them, but how many units and all that good stuff. But I want to rewind it back to when you first started because you did a strategy. It sounds like, did you house hack in that first house? You said you had renters in there. You probably didn't even know it was called house hacking.
Yeah,
It probably
exactly.
didn't have a name, did it?
Yes, I had no idea there were all these different, like, technical names for what I was doing, but, yes, we ended up renting, like, some of the rooms to, like, my brother, like, roommates, friends, family, and we were just trying to make things work at that time, and we didn't know that's what house hacking was. We were just trying to figure out ways to, pay down the mortgage a bit faster, have a bit more cash flow, and, even, like, at that time, because I didn't qualify for a regular mortgage, I was actually qualified with a B lender, and I had taken out a secondary loan through an RSP mortgage. But all of that was happening, and I had no idea that's what it was called until, recently, when
Down
I'm
the road.
in the actual industry. But that's how I made that mortgage happen. So now, I want people to know that there's always options. There's different strategies you can implement. You're not always stuck
Mm.
like I was at that time.
That's a good point. I think people, when they run into roadblocks, a lot of folks just quit.
Mhm.
And I think it's in part to how easy some of us, myself included, make things seem on social media. I think that's part of the problem.
Mhm.
But I've always said anything worth having in life comes at some sort of cost. It's a struggle. Like, it's not easy. If
Mhm.
real estate were easy, I looked at data the other day, and I hope it's accurate because I've been saying it. Like 70%, this is in the US. Okay,
Mhm.
so it's not Canada, but it'll relate. You'll get what I'm saying. 70% of citizens in the US own a primary, but only 7% own a secondary home.
Mhm.
And so if it were easy, then that number, that 7% would be way higher. We would close that gap from the 70% primary homeowners to the second homeowners, but it's not. And so I think you have to be able to be creative, be able to figure out solutions and find ways when you run into a roadblock, don't just give up and collapse. Instead, say, all right, how do I get money to get this done? Like you got to be able to see, you got to be able to keep your eye on the end goal,
Mhm.
understand your why. And you're like, look, if I get this house, I don't know how I'm gonna get it, but I feel like it's gonna be good for me in the long run.
Yeah.
And then you got it, and you had other people pay your mortgage for you,
Yeah.
which is just fantastic. And anybody listening to this, that is, I mean, you tell me, Danielle, your thoughts on this. But when you're young, if you don't have a ton of income and you're not super loanable yet, go house hack. I mean, gee,
Mhm.
that's the name of it now. Go buy a house or a duplex, quadplex, live in one room, rent out the others.
Mhm.
I mean, it gives you a jump start. I mean, it did you because
Yeah.
then you go to the next part of your story, which is being able to refi that and then start building that
Mhm.
portfolio.
Oh man, like if I could go back in time, I would tell everybody at that time, like all my friends, let's all go buy properties and house hack, because it really gives you a jump start. It forces you into property management right away.
Yeah.
It teaches you how to manage tenants because they're your roommates. And most of the time people are already doing it, but they're just not realizing it. Like, when you have roommates, you're already learning how to operate as a business because you're talking to different personalities, you're maintaining a shared common space, but owning that property just takes it to that next level. And sometimes, you can meet people that have the same goals, so you can pool your money resources together and then go and buy that single family home and all have somewhere safe and comfortable to live, and then decide what you want to do, later on when you build that equity. So there's always ways to be creative, especially if you find, the right people that you want to kind of build that wealth and that strategy with, right? And all it takes is one property really to change your life. Like, it really starts with one. And if you do it right, it's just going to keep growing because there's no need to really sell it and then like restart, right? Like the whole point is to hold on to it so that your asset can keep growing. And so that's what I tell my students. You just need one. Let's get you the first one, and then we'll deal with anything else afterwards.
That's good. Yeah. How bad do you want it, really?
Mhm.
How bad do you want to go get that first one
Mhm.
and understand that it is going to unlock opportunities that you never thought were possible?
Mhm.
And it's so cool to see you do that. So you had that first one, you house hacked for a few years, and then you were enlightened at some point about a refinance. And then
Mhm.
you go on for the next, it seems like, decade to start building this residential portfolio. What's that look like? How did that transition from the house hack into starting to scale happen? And then what was your strategy for those next 10 years?
Yeah. So the reason it took me 10 years to really buy two or three properties is because I didn't know there were any other ways to increase, the evaluation of the home because of the due to renos and things like that. I would literally just buy a house and wait 3, 4 years until the equity went up on its own, like just a passive appreciation. And then I would go and refinance it. So it took 10 years to buy 3 properties because I'm waiting 3, 4 years every time I buy a property. And, we were not coached by anybody. We didn't even know anybody else that was doing this. So we just thought we were the only ones like, "Oh, okay, we just wait it out and then go to the bank and do the same thing." And so it really was in 2020 when, COVID happened and everything switched to online. All of a sudden I started seeing, all these courses popping up and like just YouTube videos about real estate. I think for me, it's because I spent the last 10 years, like we also had a family, right? So we were raising small children. We both had our jobs. And so real estate wasn't like a main focus for us. But because my husband was laid off in 2020, that's when we had that time. And then we kind of like needed to do something different to create that cash flow that we were now missing from his job. So really it's just that exposure to real estate when once I found one community of real estate investors, that's when everything opened up. Like I went to one networking event here in Ottawa and all of a sudden I was, like, shocked. I was like, "Wait a minute, there are other people like me that are buying properties?" And and they were doing much bigger things than I was doing, And so that kind of, like, unleashed everything for me. So then I would start, having conversations with them and pretty much like being open to receiving that education, right? Like, oh, you own a 12plex, how do you buy that? Or like, oh, what, you own a 50-unit apartment, how does that happen?
Yeah.
Because in my mind, like, you buy everything yourself. Like there was no such thing as joint venture or raising capital or anything like that, right? Like you're buying the property and that's yours. And so when I met with these investors, they just like opened up my world. And then, when I went and hired my first real estate coach, she pretty much just gave me her blueprint. She's like, her strategy was buying a bungalow and then duplexing it. So that's sort of like where I went next because the single family properties that I already owned, I was like, how do I utilize the properties I already have and just duplex them? So that was sort of like the natural progression. So I ended up just looking at my own portfolio of single homes and then figuring out which properties I was able to duplex and then refinancing that after, I increased the value. And then it took that money. And then I started looking into the bigger units, like, 10 plus. And when I started shifting, I was also sharing my journey on social media. And so people were like literally following me from a beginner investor to building basement suites and now looking at apartment buildings. And I was sharing everything I was learning. So I wasn't gatekeeping. I was literally telling them, like, this is what I did this week. This is what I'm doing next week. If you're looking to build a basement suite, these are the steps I would do. So I was just really like giving out so much of my experience so that I could help others who may be in the same situation as I was. And that's kind of like the shift to multifamily. And when I went and got a coach for multifamily investing, that's when I learned about raising capital, joint ventures, opening up a corporation and doing the renovations to increase that value within a short period of time versus waiting for that passive equity to accumulate over x amount of years. And then it was just repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
Over and over. Wow, that is amazing. I think you make a good point to get around people who are already doing what you're doing. It is so important. I
Mhm,
would have never been in real estate if I wouldn't have done that. I got
mhm,
brought into the real estate world through friends who were already doing it. And it makes it so because it is hard. It's like we mentioned earlier, it's going to be hard. You're going
mhm,
to run into roadblocks. You're not sure what to do. Like I'm hosting a webinar tonight on how to analyze deals. Most people don't even know how to analyze deals. You don't know. It's you just don't know what you don't know. You don't know how to find them. You don't know how to choose a market. You don't know how to analyze them. You don't know how you need to rehab them. I mean, there's so much stuff you don't know. And so you can either try and go at it alone, and some people do, and some people have success.
mhm.
But a lot of people run into a lot more headache than they need to when they do it alone because there are literally thousands, if
Mhm.
not tens or hundreds of thousands of people who've already done it. And
Yeah.
so we just got to go find them, become friends with them, and then allow them to help us. And I know that expedited my journey. My best buddy got me into the game and he helped me find my first deal. He helped me analyze the first deal. He helped me get property management in place, funding in place. And it was like, okay, like I'm being walked step by step on how to do this.
Mhm,
And then you have this confidence and eventually you grow your own wings, right?
mhm,
Then you're able to go out and then like you do and like I do, we're then able to go help other people because we're just like people are like, why do you help other people? Doesn't it create competition? Well, no, there's so many deals out there.
Yeah.
But number two, it's like it has impacted me in such a positive way that I want everybody else to know about it. Like I'm
Yeah,
so excited about it. I'm like,
exactly.
do it. It's so cool. It's so worth it. You know?
And it's like, and it's so, to me, it's so enjoyable because every time we renovate units or we create more housing, it gives me so much joy and fulfillment knowing that we're, adding housing to the market. We're
Yeah.
providing safe housing for families and young professionals. Because, like, the way I grew up, like, we came to Canada as refugees. So the apartment buildings that we used to live in were like not safe. They were dirty. They were just not up to par in terms of living conditions. So it's really important for me and my portfolio to have these really comfortable, safe, clean apartment building units for that families to live in because I don't want them to feel the way I did growing up,
Mhm.
because we're not able to afford like decent places. So part of my strategy is also buying multifamily units where we can apply for here in Canada, it's the CMHC um, mortgage, which allows X percent of unit numbers to go to affordable housing. So the rents are lower than the average, but you get better terms for your mortgage. So to me, it's a win-win situation. So I'm able to, get a 50-year amortization uh, and have 5% down, and then 25%, let's say, of my units are allocated for affordable housing. So to me, that
Amazing.
makes me feel good as an investor and, just as a person.
I love that. One of the things that frustrates me the most that I get on social media is people talking about, if I have a post that goes viral or people who don't follow me see something, they just start bashing me for being a landlord. You're a leech. The reason for the housing crisis. And I'm like, all right, if I was uneducated on it, I would probably say the same thing. But I'm like, bro, we literally go in and buy properties. So we still play in the residential space. So I'm in multifamily syndications of funds and all as
Mhm,
an LP, but I still, when I'm running deals, I'm usually doing residential. And our strategy is we go in and we buy in good areas distressed homes that the average person can't buy. They literally are
mhm,
they can't buy it. They can't get a loan for it. And so we go in there and we make it nice and then we do one or two things. We either rent it out to somebody who's looking for a quality place to rent, but they're not able to buy yet. They need a place to live,
mhm.
or we sell it to somebody who's looking to buy a starter home.
Yeah.
And it's like, bro, we are helping the community. Like, I never feel bad about it. Like, people can bash me all they want, but I'm like, we are doing really good stuff. Now, if you're
Mhm,
price gouging people or you're not, I know these slumlords who don't take care of the properties and people are living in terrible places, you're doing a bad job.
mhm.
But if you're
Exactly.
making the community better, you're helpful. You're not hurtful.
Yes, exactly. And like, what your values are. And so that's why, like, I feel the same, when I hear people making comments about how landlords and investors are super greedy, etc. It's like, we're not greedy. We're providing a service. We're pretty much bridging the gap between like end users and people who need us to bridge that gap for them, right? They can't afford those renovations. They don't have the skill set or the expertise to buy something and renovate it, but they're able to qualify for a mortgage once it's a finished product,
Yes.
right? So it's like, if the investors are not doing it, who is going to do it? Like, those large companies are not interested in these kinds of properties. They're doing other bigger things that, have X amount of returns. So really, we play a huge role in the housing market, right? And I think people need to maybe remember that.
We keep houses from going or neighborhoods from going to crap. I mean,
Exactly.
if
Exactly.
you didn't have folks like yourself and myself coming in and revitalizing things, then you have these homes that are just sitting there
Mhm.
rotting. And if somebody's not in a home deteriorates very quickly. And
Yes.
so we're doing amazing stuff. You're absolutely crushing it. So you make this transition into multifamily in 2020-ish. And what did that strategy look like? How did you have to make that shift from, buying the single family or the residential properties into multifamily? What was your strategy? What were you looking for as far as size of units? How were you doing mortgages, raising money, all the deets?
Yeah. So I believe, so what the first multifamily I purchased was after selling our townhouse, we sold one of the townhouse. We made really great profit because it was right around 2021, where when the prices went crazy. So we were like, okay, let's sell this house and then utilize it to get into the bigger family multifamily space. So it was just so it was me and my sister. I reached out to her, or she found a deal, and she's like, "Hey, there's a 6 unit." So it was kind of a block of 3 townhouse with legal ground units. So I'll call it a sixplex,
Okay.
but they're literally 3 separate townhouses. And we decided, you know what, let's, join our resources and buy this together. So that was literally my first sort of joint venture, which was with my sister. And it was a pre construction at that time. So we just bought, the contract and we held on to it, and then it went up in value during COVID while we were waiting for it to be built. And that's the property we were able to get the 50-year amortization through CMHC. And it's fully tenanted now. And we didn't even have to raise money for it because we had the profits from our sales. But we had people who reached out to us when they saw us, purchasing that property. And they were like, how do we work with you? I also have money. Like, we would love to buy a property like this with you and have you manage it for us, because we're not, the experts, and we don't have the time, because a lot of people have careers and they're not wanting to invest in real estate full time, but they want to get the profits from it, right? So because we were sharing that journey, people started reaching out and saying, "Do you have any other projects like that that we could partner with you?" And sort of just kind of snowballed like organically through us sharing what we were doing and showing like the building, because I would give updates, like progress updates of the construction progress. So you could see, the drywall going up, you could start seeing like everything being put together, and people were getting excited. They were like, "Oh my God, it's coming together so nicely. Like, let me know when you have another one." And so that's kind of how it started. So I would collect these names and they would, tell me they would have, X amount to invest. So I would just have it. And that's kind of how I grew my investor list, not knowingly, like, right? So,
That's
and then whenever I would get another project like that from a realtor, or from like an off market realtor, I would reach out to the people that were interested and just say, "Hey, I have this project now. Like, do you want to have a look at it? We can talk about it together." And that's how we continued our journey with joint ventures.
Were you just posting these updates on like your personal accounts like Facebook, Instagram, just like people
Yeah,
seeing it?
yeah, so I'm more active on Instagram than Facebook, but that's exactly what I was doing. I was just sharing the videos on my Instagram page, and, my sister actually flew down because it was in a different part of Canada. It was in, Alberta. So she flew down there with her husband, and she took the videos, when we were closing the property, and I used that content to show, everybody what it looks like now, because they had been following us, from actually just it was just like a piece of paper to them digging and, pouring the concrete and then building the property and then actually putting in all the final touches. And so we just took everybody on that journey with us, and they really loved it.
Are you struggling to manage your real estate business across multiple spreadsheets, tools that aren't connected, and a banking solution that's not built for your needs? You need a partner like Baselane. You need a simple yet powerful platform to manage your rental property business. Baselane is the #1 banking platform built for real estate investors. It's business checking, online rent collection, bookkeeping, tax reporting, analytics, and more, all in one place. With Baselane, start automating your rental business finances and say goodbye to countless hours of busy work while taking control of your rental property finances to reduce expenses and increase your rental income. Join more than 40,000 real estate investors who trust Baselane to manage your rental property finance with confidence. Open an account in minutes. It's that fast. Head over to baselane.com/cowboy and sign up for the chance to win a $500 Amazon gift card. That's baselane.com/cowboy, COWBOY. And you're going to be entered into a raffle for the opportunity to win a $500 Amazon gift card. Go sign up today. It is amazing what happens when you share your story. And I think folks think you have to have a huge following. not from my experience. I have one now, and obviously it makes it very easy to raise capital and find partners. But when I first started, I did the same as you. We would just post our what we were doing on our personal Facebook and
Mhm.
personal Instagram accounts. And you can generate a lot of interest for potential joint ventures through doing that.
That's
Like,
right.
it's
And
crazy.
it is, and the thing is, a lot of the times, like, it's already people that are they're in your circle, right? They're your friends, your family, your coworkers, or acquaintances. Um, they already know you, they already trust you, but maybe you guys, never talked about real estate before, so they, may not even be aware of what you were doing,
Yep.
outside of your 9 to 5 or anything like that. So when you share your story, it's much easier for them to be able to reach out and ask you questions about it and not feel like they're prying or anything like that, right? So when you share, people are like, "Oh, that's really interesting. I had no idea you were in real estate." And then you just start that conversation, right? And then it leads to other things. And my favorite part is sometimes it may not be a good deal for them, but they'll refer it to somebody else that they know that might be a really good fit. So I think that's really key. It's sometimes we focus on the people we know, but we forget that every single person we know, they also know like hundreds and thousands of people as
Yes.
well,
You
right?
have to chase that down. I teach the same exact thing. People are like, well, my family, friends, acquaintances, coworkers don't have money. Okay. They know a million other
Yeah,
people. And so you
exactly.
have to like build out that network tree. Start with the people you know, and then just, oh, well, don't you know somebody? Don't they do real estate? And then just start building that list. But I don't know what it is. Then, a lot of people, they won't do that. They won't bust through that first roadblock of, oh, I don't have anybody immediately who will lend to me. Well, the majority of us don't.
Yeah, that's right. And I feel that because when I first started, I was the same. Like I took a course on how to raise capital, and the first exercise they ask you to do is go through your phone and pull out all your contacts. And I remember thinking, "Oh my god, none of these people are going to give me any money to buy real estate or invest with me. Like I don't know, like, they would do that." So, I think it's that fear of asking and also the fear of rejection maybe, kind of they both go together, and so I kinda stopped looking at it as I'm trying to look for investors, and I just started thinking, "Okay, like, how do I just share my journey and people who are interested will reach out eventually." Sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes years for people to warm up to the idea and then come and ask me questions. But it is very scary because you're doing something that's totally out of your, comfort zone, right? Like people sending out emails about what they're doing. It's like really uncomfortable if you've never done that before. I remember I was like, it was so cringy to me when I sent out that first email to say, "Hey, this is what I've been up to. I'm gonna be changing my um, email to more real estate focused content. I hope you come with me like for the journey." And after I sent that email, I was like, "Oh my god, like nobody's going to want to talk to me anymore." But they did.
Yep. I still feel cringe on stuff I post on my social media to this day. I'm like, I have all these followers, but every time I post, I'm like, oh, this is so cringe, or my email list. But it's like people are interested, people want to learn, people want to be a part. And one thing about raising private money, back to that topic, that I learned is a lot of people, when they're new to trying to raise money, look at it as they're almost begging for money.
Mhm,
And so they feel like they're coming from that place.
mhm,
Oh, I need money. Can you help me? But you have to shift your mindset to, you're not a beggar, you are a business person trying to offer somebody else a business partnership that is going to be advantageous for them. And so we're not just asking somebody for money. We are there to give them good returns on their
mhm.
investment that they can't get a lot of other places. And you can, if you can have that mindset shift,
That's
then it
right.
puts you in a more powerful position mentally to be able to leverage those conversations.
That's right, and that was my mindset because when I worked with my first coach, she made me like, I had the money to renovate the basement, but she told me, to "I don't want you to use that money. I want you to go and learn how to raise money, so you're gonna talk about your project to everybody you know, and then you're gonna talk to them about, what a great opportunity it is because they're being part of something." And
Mm.
so that's exactly what I did. But it was really scary at first, right? Because 'Cause you're like, "Oh my god." But that's why you have that accountability coach because they're making you do things you don't want to do and you normally wouldn't do, right? And so that's exactly what I did. Just started talking about this basement renovation project. And then one of my really good friends was like, "Oh, Danielle, I see what you're trying to do, and I have some savings. And if you need it, just let me know."
Yep.
I was blown away. I was like, "Oh my
Crazy.
God." Like,
It's crazy. It goes from where am I gonna get this money from to who am I gonna choose this time to partner with.
yeah, and now we can be selective. Like, I love having the freedom now not to think about, okay, like, I really need to fund this deal versus who do I want to work with on this deal? Like, who is a really good fit for this property? Like it's a totally different mindset, right? But it takes time to get there. And then when I talk to my students who are just starting out their journey, I always make sure like I understand what you're going through, but like I am your after. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's okay, just keep
Yeah,
focusing, go through the steps. In 2 to 3 years, you're gonna come out at the end of it with more confidence, and you're going to see all the work that you've put in. It's not obvious when you first start. It's really hard, it's really challenging. You wanna run away, you wanna you know what I mean? You don't wanna talk to anybody, you just wanna hide, but you have to keep doing it because you have to build that relationship, you have to earn your credibility, and you have to be passionate about what you're doing because like passion is contagious, if
yeah,
you're walking around all like super sad and stressed about your project, people probably won't want to invest with you or in that project. But if you believe it because you believe in the returns, you believe the outcome it's going to be doing for the community, people are going to want to be part of that. People love being part of a good story, a success story,
yes.
right?
I love that. I absolutely love that. It's so worth it if you'll just power through the hard days, the hard months, the hard years. It is so much worth it on the back.
Mhm.
I'm looking at a house right now. It's literally on the beach, like too close on the beach. Not just like a beachfront, but it's like on the beach. It's crazy. But it's a fantastic deal potentially if I can get it at the right price. And it's got great, it's an Airbnb, fantastic ratings and just a unique property. And I was showing my wife this morning, and she's like, "Well, where are you going to get all the money for the down payment?" Because we got a ton of projects going on, a ton of flips.
Mhm.
I was like, "That's the least of my worries." And when you get to that point to where
Yeah.
you can just go find good deals, and then know that you're going to be able to raise capital for it. However, whether we partner with somebody JV or just have a private lender or a hard money lender or bank, well, I mean, whatever the case is, it is amazing. So what's your portfolio look like now? Like, what have you done in the multifamily space since 2021?
So we have we have a few across Canada. So we do have that sixplex in Alberta. I have several in the East Coast as well, so New Brunswick and Nova Scotia as well. Um, and we have a few in my our like hometown here in Ottawa. But totaling the portfolio is just at over about 100 and something units.
So what is
Yeah.
most of them? Are they like most of them 20 units or less?
So 15 units, 24 units, 50 units, 6.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah,
6 is
it's all over.
6 is the lowest. So 6, 7, 24. Yes.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
You
thank you.
found
And then we have the couple of like duplex that I
yeah.
have here that we started with. Those are like I feel like those are like my babies because I I've nurtured them into duplexes here over the last 10 years. But the other ones are across Canada in different markets because I wanted to diversify as well. Within because we're such a vast country and every province has different criterias. And so I wanted to make sure that we had several properties in different provinces in case one province, starts to dip, the other one is, increasing. And that is kind of what's happening right now. So it's really good to have that diversification. And we do have a three condo in Turks and Caicos where I am the passive investor in that one because we have a partner who lives there and he's managing the three condos. And it's kind of like our bonus vacation rental
Yeah.
property. So that
Is
was
he
like a
on social
big
media?
Pardon me?
Is your partner on social media?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. What's his name? I'm drawing a blank.
Mark Perry?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
the best, honestly, like, it's been so wonderful working with
I need
him,
to get in with him. I need
and,
to get me a place over there.
yeah, you should totally come. We'll do, like, a mastermind retreat or something.
Yes, that would be huge. I need to get with him. I need to do that ASAP. What types of sellers have you seen? Is there a trend for when you're finding good deals? Is
Mhm.
there a certain type of seller that you're running into like frequently on these deals to be able to lock up these larger deals, or is it all across the board? Like, how are you finding good deals in multifamily space?
Most of them are from realtors, like off-market realtors, or sometimes they're from property managers.
Cool.
They're the ones that they would know, right? Like, if the owners or the shareholders of the corporation are thinking of selling, because they'll have to let them know X, Y, and Z. So sometimes if you have really good connections with property managers in the market that you're looking to buy, I think they're a really good lead, and sometimes people forget about them, right? Usually you think about realtors and sometimes even mortgage brokers, because people are either like, if their mortgage is coming to an end and there's no renewing in process, and then they say, "Oh, we're actually thinking of selling it," etc. So off market leads from mortgage brokers, property managers, and realtors, that's probably your best bet. You can always find it online as well, like on our MLS, but I find those leads are much better.
That's really cool. I love partnering with property management on deals. People, I think that, like you said, it's overlooked oftentimes.
Mhm,
But they have I email mine regularly. Hey, don't forget about me if somebody wants to sell out their portfolio or you come up with a good deal, which they got other investors who are interested too. But you can at least look at it with a limited pool of people
mhm.
interested. Whereas if it's on the MLS, you got everybody and their brother can see it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I've come across some good deals that way. I love working with other investors too. Like
Mhm.
I'll just call other investors. Hey man, what do you got? You got any properties you're looking to offload? You'll be surprised whether they got something or a buddy of theirs. And
Mhm.
it's such an easy transaction.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you're dealing with other investors, if you're buying multifamily, you're going to be buying from other investors, but they may be represented. But in the residential space, I'll just straight up call them. I'll look and see, this guy's got 10 properties in this town I'm interested in. And
Mhm.
then if they agree to sell some of them, it's so easy because you can show them your pro forma. Hey, this is what I got to buy it at and make sense. Are you willing to part with it? And they're either yes or no, and nobody's offended. And then you
Yeah.
just do the deal or you don't do the deal. It's fantastic. I love it. It's one of my most favorite strategies. And people are always like, they're calling owner occupied people who've lived in a home for 20 years with all this equity. I'm like, that's a hard call. Like you're trying to get somebody to move out of their house. I'm just calling the other investor who's like, yeah, I'll make a buck. You get
Yeah.
a good deal, I make some money. It's been a pretty good strategy of ours, at least on the residential side.
It's because you're both just looking at the numbers, right? You understand each other. You understand that, you need to make a little bit of money. He or she needs to make a bit of money too. So it's more of a numbers discussion versus like any sort of emotional or, trying to justify X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to mention this is another lead that people forget sometimes. It's the property inspectors.
Mhm.
So my property inspector is amazing, and I always let him know, like, if you go to a property inspection and the person wants to sell, or you hear anybody else, thinking, because sometimes people will do it before they want to sell. So
Mhm.
instead of contacting the realtor, I always tell them, like, can you call me first so I can get
Yeah.
in there? And so that's another lead that sometimes goes forgotten.
Dude, I get leads from my HVAC guy. I get leads from my, locksmith all the
Mhm.
time, bro. We got them coming in from everywhere. People are like, how do you get leads?" I'm like, "Just make friends."
Yeah.
Like, make friends, you don't even have to cold call or send mailers out, depending on what your strategy is. So, that's really cool. How do you guys normally go about structuring these deals? So, you find a 25 unit apartment complex and, you're gonna raise capital, do a joint venture. What's that look like?
Okay, so it depends on what the strategy is for the property. But most of the time, let's say we have only three or four investors. So we would open up a corporation, and then everybody is a shareholder based on their contribution, whether it's capital qualification or being the active investor. So most of the deals are set up that way because it just makes it easier. We have that corporation for liability, and then everyone is a shareholder. And then if we have to if one of the investors need to exit the deal, we can transfer their shares and replace them with another investor. That's so far been the most straightforward strategy.
And do you guys, being the general partner, do you get a fee for managing it as well? Like for putting
Yeah,
the
so it
together?
depends again on the plans for the property. If it's something that is going to require a lot of overseeing, then you would charge like a percentage to oversee the asset. If it's sort of just a straight up buy and hold property, then I don't feel the need to do that because we're already, benefiting from the owning the property, etc. So I think it really depends on the actual property and then the strategy for that property, and then the fees and sort of the structure would be based on that.
And you are you burying a lot of these where you're buying them undervalued, rehabbing them, and then refining you guys capital out to pay your at least your down payment back? Is that
Not necessarily all of them. Some of them have just been very easy buy and hold, and then we're just renovating a few at a time when the tenants leave because we're in it really for like the long-term plan. There have been a couple of properties where it's been a burr, but a lot of the times um, they were such good buys that the investors already know that we're not in it for like 1 or 2 year and then doing a quick refinance. Sometimes they know that the plan is to hold it for 3 to 5 years, but if there's enough equity, then we'll refinance and pull that back out. But so it's a little bit of different strategies.
that's smart, you guys going with the long term view. I think that protects yourself and it
Mhm.
brings in good partners who are aligned with that vision. The worst is when you have partners who are calling every 6 months. Hey, when am I getting my capital back? Hey,
Mm,
it's like, no, we don't want to do that. Like,
yes, yes,
we're here for the long run because that's where the wealth is really built.
exactly, right? Like sometimes I also this is something else I wanted to like bring up. Sometimes people are so focused on the cash flow um that they lose sight of the long-term equity
Thank
building,
you.
you
I'm
know?
clapping for you. I don't know if I got sound effects here. Hold on. Oh, hold on. No, there we go. There's the clap. That's what I was looking for. Yes, I knew I had it in there somewhere. Expound on that. That fires me up.
Yeah, so I think it's so important, especially like new investors. They're like, "Well, there's not a lot of cash flow," but we're here for a long-term game. Like the equity is where the money is at, right? So being focused on that. I mean, you don't want to be losing money every month either. So cash flow is important, but it's not the only thing that we're looking for.
Oh, it's such a buzzword. People just get so held
Mhm.
up on cash flow. It drives me
Yeah.
insane. One of the things I'm talking about in my webinar tonight is
Okay.
you got to get off of focusing on one metric. There are more metrics than just cash flow.
Hmm.
And you've been in this longer than I have. What makes you wealthy is not cash flow. Cash flow to me is cherry on top.
Yes.
But where your life is going to change is when you have assets sitting over here and they go up in value over time while tenants pay down your debt.
Mm.
That is where the life change occurs between those two plus your tax benefits. And then the cherry on top is that cash flow you're getting. And
Yes.
I think just people they have misconstrued like understanding of what real estate is. They're buying just for cash flow. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you guys are missing the mark big
Yeah.
time. Like that's a big miss. You can miss out on a lot of properties by just focusing on that one. Cause there's deals that I've bought, especially burring, right? Cause
Mhm.
you're taking out higher equity where I've been break even, like
Yeah.
or making $50 a month. Why would you buy that? Well, I just bought a property and I have no money left in the deal, or I
Mhm.
got 5 grand in the deal. And so I have very little capital. And now it's going to go up in value. I tenants pay off my debt. And so if I do that 10, 15, 20 times, 30, 40, whatever, then that's how we became multimillionaires. And so I'm not going
Mhm.
to stop doing that. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It blows my mind. It blows
Yeah,
my mind that
'cause
people.
you're pretty much looking at infinite returns at that point, right? If you're pulling out all your money, you have hardly anything left, like, it's like a free house, you know what I mean?
It's a cheat code. It's great.
Exactly. So I think that's really important, but I get it though. Everywhere you go, you hear cash flow, and sometimes for me, the biggest myth is, okay, you need cash flow to retire or quit your 9 to 5. But do you know how many units
Oh
you
my
need
gosh.
to
Right.
retire on cash flow?
Quit your 9 to 5, go flip. You're not going to do it
Exactly.
anytime soon on rentals. You
Ex
will over time,
Yes, over time.
but it's not going to come off cash flow.
No,
Like,
no, you can't. It's just it's so hard, but
thank you.
I mean, it is doable, but I think we have to be realistic, especially for new investors. Like, you can't retire off cash flow unless you have a huge, massive portfolio and you
With
have a
yeah,
huge reserve as well. Because if anything happens, you have to tap into that cash flow for your repairs and unexpected expenses. You have to have a really high reserve in order to live off cash flow. Because what I've seen is people who do leave their 9 to 5 because they have like a a solid portfolio, is they end up having to do wholesaling or something like that to offset that cash flow if anything happens to it, right? So there's always some sort of active income when you look at it like that. So for me, it's more about the equity wealth building, and like the underrated, like mortgage pay down, like that is really the meat and bones here. You know what I mean? That is like guaranteed every month. The mortgage will go down because the tenants are paying for it. The appreciation is fantastic. If you do renos, forced appreciation, again,
easy.
bonus. But what's really guaranteed is your mortgage pay down if your
Yeah.
tenants are paying for it, right? Like for every single year, you're going to get your mortgage statement and your principal is going to go down. Like that is
Yes.
in your pocket.
Yeah. Even if your property doesn't appreciate, so you buy a $500,000 property,
Yeah.
never appreciates. Well, once it's paid off, you got a $500,000 asset.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, you can live off cash flow. That cash flow is taxed.
Mhm.
What's not taxed is refis or pulling
Yes.
HELOCs on those properties. And so what you start to do is you start figuring out, how do I live off of the equity in my properties without having to pay the government? And then that's when it gets really fun. But you got to scale. You got to get there. You got to, whether you're doing residential or multifamily, you got to get units, and then we got to have that equity build up over time. But it's an amazing place to be. So love it. Love where your head's at. And every season investor, savvy investor I've talked to thinks the same way. So I don't know where all the newbies have this cash flow thing stuck in their mind, but yeah, we got to move past that. So tell us about the Women's Investors Networking, and I think you're part of the, obviously, the Canada chapter and the international chapter. What's the deal with that?
Oh my gosh. So this is something I'm super passionate about because during COVID, same thing, like I felt really like alone and I didn't know where to go for like support. But it's different, when you have a room of women versus a co-ed room. It's just different because a lot of us are moms, we work full time. And so a friend of mine, two girlfriends of mine, we sort of connected through social media, and we co-founded the Women Investors Network Canada, or WINC for short.
Nice.
And it just kind of started here as a small meetup group for women to talk about business, life, real estate. And then people really resonated with our message, about supporting other women. And we were hosting events online during that time because we weren't allowed to meet in person. So, because it was online, we were able to reach other women across Canada. So, all the way from BC to the East Coast, people were connecting together, providing each other support, learning how to invest in real estate. And then when the pandemic, all the restrictions got lifted, we started meeting up in person. And so now we have, I think, 11 chapters now across Canada, and one international chapter where it's online. And our co-host, she brings in investors from all over the world to talk about investing. Like if you want to invest in Greece or Portugal, we have that connection. So this is something that's really important for me because when I was 10, my mom, she was a single mom at the time, and we needed the money, and she had to sell our house because she didn't know about refinancing or using it, having a lien on it or something like that to access that equity. She only knew that she had to sell to get access to the capital. And so it's so important for me to share this knowledge for women, to women, and if they're ever stuck, that they have options, and to know that there's a group of us out here in Canada, across the world, that are willing to help and support their journey as well.
I love it. Ladies, go hook up with Danielle immediately. That's a fantastic network they have all across Canada and even the international chapter. Danielle, I want to thank you for being on today. Where can folks get a hold of you?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun. I'm most active on Instagram, so it's just my name, so at Danielle Unsworth. And my website is danielleunsworth.com. And yeah, we're always looking to grow our community. And I think we're probably looking at a US chapter of Wink. So if
Ye-
anyone is interested, they can reach out to me. I would love to connect with you.
Awesome. And we'll have those links in the show notes so you guys can go check it out. Danielle, thank you so much. This was fantastic. Keep crushing it. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you so much.